12-year-old Aaliyah Monroe gasped for breath at 35,000 feet, her throat burning with every shallow inhale. "Water, please," she whispered hoarsely to flight attendant Cheryl Lockwood, who glanced down at her, smirked, and walked away. "No acknowledgement. No urgency." Just calculated dismissal. As Aaliyah's breathing became more labored, passengers around her began to notice her distress. Cheryl, however, continued catering to the white passengers, her demeanor polished and cheerful. What she didn't realize was that in first class, seated quietly behind a wall of discretion, sat Quentin Monroe's father and the majority owner of Horizon Air, the very airline that issued Cheryl's paycheck. Quentin hadn't always been a billionaire. Born in the Bronx to parents who worked double shifts, he clawed his way to success through relentless determination, investment savvy, and grit. By 44, he had earned his place at the top of the aviation industry. But no business success mattered more to him than his daughter. Aaliyah was everything. Since his wife Carla passed away from breast cancer when Aaliyah was just 5, Quentin had raised her on his own, learning to braid her hair, manage her dietary restrictions, and show up at every parent-teacher conference, even while building an empire. She was whip-smart, kind-hearted, and as allergic to peanuts as she was to injustice. Quentin believed deeply in humility. Despite his wealth, he preferred to fly incognito to see the service his customers received firsthand. For this trip, to Paris, a reward for Aaliyah's straight A's despite chronic health issues, she had chosen a commercial flight. He booked himself in first class and placed his daughter in premium economy, explaining, "Privileges are best appreciated when they're earned, not expected." Neither father nor daughter anticipated encountering someone like Cheryl Lockwood. Cheryl had a pristine record on paper and a reputation among supervisors as a professional, but among certain passengers, particularly passengers of color, her name evoked tension. She was known for playing favorites. She followed rules to the letter for some, while bending them without hesitation for others. And the others were usually white. When Aaliyah boarded the plane, Cheryl barely looked up. "14B," she said coolly, without the courtesy she had just extended to the white couple ahead. Aaliyah was excited. Her first trip to Europe and a week of museums, croissants, and Disneyland Paris awaited. But that joy began to dim 2 hours into the flight when she nibbled on a snack provided by the Airline cookie mislabeled as nut-free. She immediately felt the warning signs: itching in her throat, a tingling tongue, warmth rising in her chest. Years of managing allergies had trained her to act fast. She fumbled for her antihistamine in her carry-on and hit the call button. When Cheryl reached her row, Aaliyah quietly asked for water. "I'll come back," Cheryl replied flatly, turning to serve a white businessman 2 rows over. 10 minutes passed. Cheryl served drinks and snacks to everyone near Aaliyah except her. The tingling worsened. Her throat tightened. Her breathing quickened. She pressed the call button again. Cheryl looked at the glowing light, made eye contact, and turned away. A third press. This time, Cheryl stomped over, flipped off the light, and said loud enough for surrounding rows to hear, "The call button is for emergencies only, not for impatient little girls." "I have an allergy," Aaliyah managed. "Please, water." "You'll get served when it's your turn," Cheryl said dismissively, walking away again. In row 15, 73-year-old Margaret Winslow watched with growing concern. The girl ahead of her was visibly struggling to breathe. "Excuse me," Margaret said, flagging Cheryl. "That child said she has an allergy. She's clearly not well." "I have everything under control, ma'am," Cheryl replied, with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Nearby, Jared Thomas, a marketing director on his way to a conference, discreetly began recording the interaction on his phone. He had seen enough. Moments later, the woman beside Aaliyah noticed her flushed face and rapid, shallow breaths. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" Aaliyah shook her head. The woman handed over a half-empty water bottle. "Here, take it." Aaliyah gratefully took the antihistamine, but knew it was already too late. Her emergency epinephrine was in her backpack overhead, and her body was losing the battle. Meanwhile, up in first class, Quentin Monroe sipped an espresso and scanned a business report, unaware of the crisis unfolding behind him. Cheryl returned to the galley. "That girl's still pressing the call button?" her colleague asked. "She's being dramatic," Cheryl scoffed. "Entitled kids these days. And you know how they are." "You mean black children?" the junior attendant replied quietly. Cheryl rolled her eyes and changed the subject. Back in premium economy, Aaliyah stood up, her legs shaky. "Please," she said to Cheryl as she passed by again, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is it because I'm black?" The cabin fell silent. Cheryl turned, lips pursed. "How dare you suggest such a thing? You're causing a disruption, and if it continues, I'll have security meet you in Paris." Margaret stood up, her white curls trembling with indignation. "This child is clearly unwell. She asked you for water. What possible justification do you have for ignoring her?" "I'm following protocol, ma'am," Cheryl barked. "No, you're not," Jared called out, phone still recording. "You're escalating instead of helping." Others joined in. "She said she had an allergy. I'm a medical student. She looks like she's going into shock." "I'm a doctor," another man shouted, pushing through the crowd. "Let me through." He knelt beside Aaliyah, who collapsed seconds later into the aisle. Her lips were turning blue. "Anaphylaxis," he declared. "I need the emergency kit now." Cheryl froze. It hadn't occurred to her that this child might actually be in danger. "Now," the doctor barked. Carter Lane, a young flight supervisor, sprang into action, retrieving the kit and alerting the captain. In first class, Quentin finally got the message. "Your daughter. There's been a medical emergency," the attendant whispered. Quentin bolted from his seat. When he reached the crowd, he saw his child lying unconscious, a stranger injecting her with epinephrine. "Say," he gasped, dropping to his knees. "I'm her father. Severe allergy," the doctor explained. "We've administered the shot. She should start improving." Quentin saw the unused epinephrine pen in her bogger little hands hadn't been able to reach it. "Why didn't someone help her sooner?" he demanded. Cheryl stepped forward, her tone now syrupy. "Sir, we acted as soon as we realized." "That's not true," Margaret interrupted. "She asked for help, and you ignored her." "I have it on video," Jared added. "You served every white passenger before her." "Sir," Cheryl tried again, "your daughter was disruptive. She was suffocating," Quentin said coldly. "I'm sorry you feel that way," Cheryl stammered, still unaware who she was speaking to. Quentin pulled a business card from his coat pocket and handed it to her. "Quentin Monroe, Chairman, Horizon Air." The color drained from Cheryl's face. Gasps rippled through the cabin. The doctor continued monitoring Aaliyah's vitals, which slowly stabilized. Quentin took the cabin phone and spoke directly to the captain. "We'll proceed to Paris, but senior staff will now monitor economy. And Cheryl Lockwood is to be relieved of duty for the remainder of this flight." The cabin crew didn't object. Upon landing in Paris, police met the plane. So did a medical team, reporters, and airline investigators. Quentin stayed calm, but his mind raced with what came next. A legal battle, a PR storm, a reckoning. He turned to Aaliyah, whose eyes had opened. "You okay, baby girl?" "I think so," she rasped. "Good, because we're about to change everything." And they did. From that day forward, Horizon Air launched a sweeping reform of their training, complaint handling, and hiring practices. Cheryl was suspended pending investigation. Multiple crew members came forward with stories of her previous behavior. The public response was massive. Social media exploded. Videos of the incident were viewed millions of times. Civil rights leaders, celebrities, and everyday parents spoke out. It was no longer just about one little girl. It was about all of them. Quentin didn't just settle for apologies or settlements. He changed the system. And Aaliyah, now the quiet but undeniable face of that movement, knew she had done something brave. "I asked for water," she told her father quietly one night, weeks later. "And instead, you started a revolution," he replied. Together, they watched a new horizon take flight one where justice traveled at 35,000 feet.